Hoop Hogs Sports presents the basketball podcast of Mid-America, the premier Arkansas Hoops podcast, brought to you by Landers Toyota of Northwest Arkansas. Here's your host, Hoop Hogs Sports basketball analyst Scotty Bordelon.
Welcome in, everybody, to the basketball podcast of Mid-America. Arkansas has won 4 straight games and is 8-1 and gearing up for a meeting with Oklahoma on Saturday in Tulsa. Arkansas is going to play Oklahoma at noon in the BOK Center in Tulsa. The game is going to be on ESPN2. I think that's a game that we've been kind of looking forward to probably since Arkansas got back from Maui. In the early first couple weeks of the season, it was, Arkansas's got to get through this first 3-game stretch to get to Maui. Arkansas's got to handle its business on Maui, come back for a few games, and then I don't know if Arkansas's been necessarily looking ahead to Oklahoma, maybe the last couple of games, but definitely a big one for Arkansas. It's a chance for them to, notch another Power 5 win and get that under their belt. Really happy to be joined on the podcast today by Andrew Joseph of Hoop Hogs Sports and Bob Holt of the Arkansas Democrat-Gazette. Unfortunately, this is, the first time we've recorded the podcast since November 17th, I think, or the day after Trevor Brazilew went viral for his dunk, I guess the dunk of the year against South Dakota State. There's a lot that has changed since then. Me and Andrew were talking about it before we started recording. We didn't want to go 3 weeks between recordings, and we probably shouldn't have. But yeah, there's been a lot that's been going on with Arkansas basketball. And the last time we started this show, we were talking about Trevin and his big dunk. I mean, he was on LeBron's Instagram feed. He was kind of the talk of the entire basketball world for a while, and I guess we're going to start with him again today for a reason that we all wish wasn't the case. But on Tuesday in Arkansas's win over UNC Greensboro, he tore the ACL in his right knee. He went down with about 7.5 minutes left in the first half. Really kind of a standard dribble drive for him, but his right knee, I mean, you could see his right leg just bent awkwardly, and he collapsed to the floor immediately. And he had to get Ronnie Brewer and the strength coach, Dave Richardson, to help carry him off the floor. He came back after halftime and just sat on the bench. But I'm like 99% sure in the second half, I saw him mouth to somebody that I tore my ACL. And so I was thinking kind of at that point that it wasn't going to be good news for Trevin. But Bob, you exchanged some texts with Eric Musselman on Wednesday after the news came out. Now you got a story on our website with all those thoughts from Eric. What was kind of the gist of his thoughts about the whole situation, and then how do you think this really changes Arkansas' ceilings? I mean, I think when Arkansas was putting this roster together, he was a huge part of it.
Yeah, Eric was nice enough to text me back, and I'm just looking at my story. He said this is a significant loss for our team. When we built this roster, TB's versatility was a big part of it. He has emerged as one of the nation's most unique players. He has an incredible future ahead of him. He said a few other things, but obviously they're going to need to have some guys step up on the roster to fill that void. But yeah, you feel terrible for Trevin. He's been here a few months. He's worked really hard over the summer and into the fall to get ready for the season. He was having a breakout season. He was moving up draft boards. I don't think it's a stretch to say if he'd continued on the trajectory he was on, he was going to be a first-round draft pick. And, he still might be. Obviously an injury can affect your draft stock, but there may be teams out there saying, well, we love this guy's ceiling. He's so young. We're going to pick him and, rehab him, and then, he'll be ready to go. I mean, obviously when Oklahoma City drafted Chet Holmgren, they didn't know he was going to get hurt, but I think they still feel like he's got a good future. So, but yeah, you just feel terrible for Trevin. It's a terrible break for the team, but you especially feel bad for Trevin. And, but I don't think it means, Arkansas season's over. Excuse me. Maybe, Eric's first year here, they didn't have much depth. They basically played 7 guys. And when Isaiah Joe had to miss some games, they basically played 6 guys. They do have, I'm not saying they have another player like Trevor Brazilew, because a guy like him is few and far between, but I do think they have some capable players who can, they're going to probably need more from Jordan Walsh now. Jordan Walsh, they're going to need more from, Jalen Graham, a guy who's showing some flashes of good play. Probably need more from the Mitchell twins, especially McCall, who hadn't played a whole lot. And they do have Nick Smith back, obviously a great player. So I think Arkansas can still have a great season, but you just feel terrible for Trevin, and they're going to have to make some adjustments, obviously.
Yeah, you guys can probably attest to this too. When Trevin went down and he stayed down, I saw Mackay kind of put both hands on the back of his head, kind of like in that surrender cobra position. And I just kind of knew at that point it wasn't going to be probably pretty good news, or wasn't going to be good news. And then after the game, he came in and talked. He played really well, so he came in and talked to us afterward, and he said it scared him. It's just like it. He hated to see one of his teammates and one of his boys go down like that. And like I said, y'all could probably agree with this. Like Bud Walton was maybe as quiet at that point when Trevin was just kind of laying on the ground as I've ever heard it. And there's been some times when it's been really eerily quiet in there too, just because Arkansas is not playing well, maybe during a timeout or something. But according to the release that Arkansas put out on Wednesday, Trevin's going to have surgery to repair the knee later this month. Andrew, how do you think his absence impacts things moving forward, or what do you see happening from a personnel standpoint with him out?
Yeah, I've seen a lot about how his absence is going to be opening up minutes for maybe one guy in particular, and that's Jalen Graham, that I've seen a lot of people mention is going to get some extended run. But I really think that with him being out and you guys mentioned his versatility, his uniqueness, his length, athleticism, being able to play in and out is not something that you can replicate with one guy. Like you're not going to be able to just plug Jalen Graham in and he can fill that role for you. And so I think Bob kind of touched on it earlier when he was going through the different guys that are going to have to step up to fill those voids. And I think you're looking at the Mitchell twins are going to have to take over the rebounding department because Trevin Brazilew was leading the team in rebounds. You're going to have to find someone who can be a consistent 3-point threat, whether that's Nick Smith or Anthony Black, because Trevin Brazilew was probably your main perimeter shooter to this point. And so I think it's just kind of different areas of the game where he affected them. They're going to have different guys step up.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think we're going to see more consistent minutes for Mackay, and I think it's warranted just because he's played so well recently. Like he went for 13, 14, 4 blocks and 2 steals the other night, in a game that was, tighter than a lot of people hoped for or expected. But he really performed really well. And I think Mikal may get some additional minutes too, just to try to fill some of that rim protection and shot blocking void that, you mentioned that Trevin leaves. I think Jay Billis during the Maui Invitational, when Mikal was playing well against maybe Louisville, he got in early in that game and he blocked a shot out of bounds. He ran the floor super well, which that's kind of what Mackay does incredibly well for a guy that his size, like 6'9", 220, 225, whatever you want to call it. Mikal's a little bit bigger, but he ran the floor pretty well. And so that to me was kind of encouraging. It's been interesting that we haven't really seen a whole lot of him since they got back from Maui. I think it's super important to, because I think it's important that Jordan Walsh gets going in some way, shape, or form, just because you think about Trevin's perimeter scoring that he gave, like he was tied for the team lead, or he still is tied for the team lead in 3-pointers made. And when he was engaged and he was knocking down perimeter jumpers, he changed the entire complexion of Arkansas's offense. And whenever he started knocking down threes, he could take his guy off the bounce, get to the rim, that kind of thing. I think it's really important for Jordan Walsh to get going offensively. He started, I think, the last 8 games maybe, and it's been kind of hit or miss, to be real honest. Like he started the other night, I think on Tuesday, and played like 7 or 8 minutes, just wasn't a factor at all. He absolutely has to start just shooting the three, not even worrying about making them at this point. It's just kind of taking them. The hesitation that I'm seeing from Jordan from the 3-point line has just been kind of frustrating, I think, to me, to watch it, because that he's a threat. Tuesday he hesitated before he took his first 3 and missed it, and then I think he bobbled a pass in the right corner when someone set him up for a 3, and he fumbled the ball out of bounds, and I think that may have been the last time that he played. So I think Jordan is a big piece to that too.
talking about Trevin's knee injury and Makai's reaction, I think it's worth noting, and I don't know how many people knew this. I guess I'd written about it, kind of forgot about it, but 2 years ago when Makai was a sophomore at Rhode Island, he played 7 games. Then, according to his bio, he missed the rest of the year with a season-ending knee injury. Now, I don't know if he tore an ACL or what it was, but obviously he had a serious knee injury. So I wonder if he sees, his teammate, is he referred to, his brother. It's a pretty close-knit team, seems to be. He sees him go down, and maybe, it flashes through his mind what happened to him, and he realizes the severity of it, and he probably knows what Trevin has ahead of him in terms of rehab. And, he talked about how scary it was, and you sort of wonder if he possibly had, flashbacks to his own injury. I don't know if he got hurt in a game or practice or what happened. Don't know the details of that, but that might help explain. I mean, I'm sure everybody had a horrible reaction to it, but that might help explain, his immediate reaction on the court and then what he said after the game to us.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those moments that I think makes you kind of sick to your stomach. I know it kind of did that to me when it happened, and I think the quietness in the arena, the lack of, any energy or enthusiasm or whatever, just because of, kind of the magnitude of what could be coming if what you think happened actually happened. And then, a lot of people on social media message boards and things like that on Wednesday were, just pretty heartbroken and tore up for TV. But I think he's got a pretty good support system around him to try to help him get through this. The Basketball Podcast of Mid-America is sponsored by Landers Toyota of Northwest Arkansas. Visit their showroom at 411 South Metro Parkway in Rogers or at landerstoyotanwa.com.
For all your automotive needs, shop Landers Toyota NWA in Rogers, where we guarantee you the best buying experience and best service after the sale in Arkansas. Landers Toyota NWA in Rogers.
WholeHogSports.com has the largest, most experienced staff of reporters covering sports in Arkansas. Football, basketball, baseball, recruiting, and more. You'll find it at WholeHogSports.com. The website includes up-to-minute news, daily commentaries, and award-winning photography from the staffs of Hogs Illustrated and the Democrat Gazette. For subscriptions, call 1-800-757-6277. That's 1-800-757-6277. Or visit us online today. WholeHogSports.com.
Want more coverage of your home team? Download the Whole Hog Sports Video on Demand app. Check out the Fan Zone and get up-to-the-minute videos, podcasts, and features on football, basketball, baseball, recruiting, and more. Search for Whole Hog Sports on Apple TV, Roku, and Amazon Fire at home. And take it with you on the go by downloading it for your mobile device in your app store. The Whole Hog Sports Video on Demand app. Get it today.
Let's get into Nick Smith's play a little bit, since he made his debut 3 games ago against Troy. That I can't believe we've gotten this far into this and haven't talked about Nick's debut. He played just a handful of minutes against Troy. Arkansas beat Troy, I believe, 74-61. So that was another game that, was a little bit closer than probably a lot of people would have liked, but he came back against San Jose State, had 16 points in his first start, looked pretty good. I think he was 3 of 5 from 3 in that game. And then he had 22 on Tuesday against UNC Greensboro. What's jumped out to you guys, I guess, just about Nick's game, and just maybe how he's impacted the offense? And do you see, some differences, I guess, in the way that Arkansas has operated on that end since he's come back?
Yeah, I guess I'm just impressed with how fast he's kind of gotten back in the flow. He played, I think it was 6 minutes against Troy and didn't score. He came in, I think his first shot was, I'm sure he was anxious, and I think it was an air ball or maybe barely grazed the rim. It wasn't a good shot, or I'm sure a typical Nick Smith shot. And he looked out of sorts because he hadn't played since the exhibition game at Texas. He'd been out for however many weeks it was. And I'm sure he was overly excited, overly anxious. And now Eric Musselman did a smart thing, not, pushing him. When the game was close late, Arkansas was actually behind, and Ricky Council took over, really, and helped him win the game. And then, like you said, Nick came back and had a good game against San Jose State, and they just blew him out in the second half, won by 41. And then the other night, Eric pointed this out, he scored 65 points and 22 comes from Nick Smith. If he doesn't play and have a good game, that maybe they don't win. I mean, maybe Ricky or somebody else would have stepped up and scored more. That was really, I think, the first game Ricky Council didn't score in like 15 or so. He had 8, I think. But yeah, I've been impressed with Nick, just how fast he's gotten back into the flow of things, I guess. And he played 39 minutes, which is very impressive. When you haven't been playing much before that.
Yeah, definitely. I think the way that he came back with the minutes restriction, that he wasn't able to kind of fully let loose and be himself, and I think he was able to do that in this last game against UNC Greensboro. I think he led all players in minutes, playing 39 of the 40 with 22 points. And I think something that also struck my interest was just how fiery and emotional, competitive he is on the court.
Love that about him. Yeah.
Every time he had a big bucket, you could see him just point to the crowd or just scream something, and it's just like that makes the game fun, in my opinion. And it's good to see. And it's like those guys, you could tell he's just kind of wired differently, and like how badly he wants to compete, and it really works in Arkansas's favor because he's really good and really competitive.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on the kind of the intensity. And then, he kind of felt the moment on Tuesday, when he added that, he got a steal, I think, at a pretty big moment, went coast to coast, added a finger roll layup. He ran, he kind of jogged over, I guess jogged, walked, whatever. He was kind of throwing his arms up, looking at Arkansas's bench. And then, the crowd was really feeling it because it was a close game at that point. He scored a big bucket. He walks out to half court and he's, throwing his arms up in the air, trying to get the crowd engaged, and that kind of stuff, from a writer's standpoint is great, because that's how I led my sidebar on him. I think he's kind of one of those guys. He reminds me a little bit of like Daryl Macon in the way that he kind of, maybe, I don't want to say he gets maybe lost in the moment briefly, but he definitely feels the energy from the crowd whenever he creates those moments. I think that's kind of what I said the other night, like he got lost in the moment that he created. And that's really fun. I've been really impressed, especially in his starts. He's 4 of 10 from 3, which, I know he was 1 of 5 the other night, but the 1 3 that he did hit was pretty big. And I'll take 40% from 3 any day of the week. And, he's given Arkansas what they really need, because Arkansas's the last few games seen more zone defense than they have at any other point in the year. And I've really liked not just his 3-point shooting, but the way that he has, gotten into those soft spots, or Eric calls them the hot spots in the zone, whether it's off dribble drives and he's using like floaters and short runners and short jumpers and that kind of thing, whether it's off the dribble, or I know one of his buckets, I think maybe against San Jose State or UNC Greensboro, I can't remember which, he passed the ball into the left corner, and then he immediately cut to just about the left short corner, caught a pass, and immediately went up for a jumper, or a short jumper from right there. That's how you beat a zone. And I think his movement without the ball has been really effective against opponents' zones to this point. Speaking of 3-point shooting, I wrote a sidebar, or kind of a follow, from the Greensboro game, just about what we've seen from Anthony Black the last, I guess, 3 games. He's 5 of his last 9 from 3, which I don't know if a whole lot of people expected him to be, on a tear like he has been. Because, Nick, after the game, when I asked him about AB's perimeter shooting, was like, man, I heard all the noise during the summer that, AB couldn't shoot from 3, but he's 5 of his last 9. He's shooting over 40% from 3. Again, you're going to take that pretty much every day of the week. And I was looking at CBB Analytics, which is a site that I've really grown to like over the last couple of years. AB is 6 of 8 from 3 on the right side of the floor, and he's 5 of 11 on the left side. Now, he struggled from the top of the key, but AB can just do so many things when he's on the floor. And I think if he continues to shoot the ball from deep as well as he is now, I think it really changes, things for the team offensively. What have y'all thought of the boost that AB's given them from deep?
Yeah, well, I guess we first kind of saw it in Maui before Nick Smith was back, and I think he had not. I think going into Maui, Anthony Black was averaging 6 points because he was more of a facilitator. He was rebounding, getting assists, but he wasn't shooting much. And I think he felt over in Maui maybe he needed to be more aggressive on offense. The coaching staff had talked to him about that, and he goes for, was it 24 in back-to-back games, I think it was, or
26, yeah.
26, okay. And now I'm not saying he's going to score 26 all the time, especially with Nick Smith back. But with Trevin out, Trevin was a guy that was averaging double figures, so Anthony might pick up his shooting even more. But yeah, that's when I really thought, wow, this guy can, be pretty aggressive offensively. He wants to be, not just passing or getting, either throwing alley-oop assists or finishing alley-oop passes with dunks himself. He's got a perimeter game too. And I think that's, as young as he is, these guys are just growing and growing, day by day, week by week, game by game. So I expect that to keep up, although obviously the competition is going to get tougher as they get into SEC play, game after game.
Yeah, I think everyone is pretty well aware at this point that 3-point shooting is not how Arkansas is going to win its games. And I think Eric Musselman's been talking about the team's 3-point shooting kind of philosophy is that they just need to at least keep defenses honest and at least give them reason to think that they're going to pull the trigger from deep, because they have so many guys that are so good going downhill and attacking the rim, like Ricky Council, AB, Nick Smith, Devo. All those guys are just lethal attacking the basket. And so if you can just at least give defenses a little hesitancy and not allow them to pack the lane, that's where they're going to find their success.
Man, both of AB's threes against Greensboro came at really, really ideal times. I think the first one, I'm pretty sure it gave Arkansas a 44-43 lead. It was like Arkansas's first lead in the game since like 6-5. And then I thought that was a great sequence from him because it was it was transition or semi-transition, and he filled a lane, I thought, pretty well, but he didn't get the ball maybe streaking down the lane like he maybe anticipated, but he didn't stop, maybe under the rim and just try to figure out where to go. He like immediately ran to the right corner, and somebody, I think it was Jordan Walsh, found him, and he knocked down a three. His second three was just really pretty basketball. Like Nick is driving to the rim, he skipped past to Ricky Council. I think Ricky finds AB on the right wing, and he just steps into those threes, and it looked really fluid. And I think that's what Eric said when I asked him about AB's perimeter shooting the other night. He's just like, he's the quality of the threes that AB is taking, he's going to live with those, like probably make or miss. And to be honest, like AB's got to take those threes too, like not just because they're wide open, but just because like the strength of his game is getting to the rim off the bounce, and he's got to keep defenses honest. But anytime he can step into a three, have his feet set, I think that's pretty ideal for Arkansas. And Nick was talking about how, he heard, like I said, he heard all the noise that AB was, kind of an ineffective jump shooter or whatever. And Eric probably heard some of the same things. Like that was maybe the knock on AB, is that it wasn't like a great knockdown shooter, maybe in high school, but he's working on it. And he's been really, really effective to this point in the season. And he's got to continue to take those, I think, I think if he does, it benefits Arkansas's offense more than anything. Bob, I think the big story from Tuesday's game, outside of the news on Trevin, was Mekhi Mitchell's game. You wrote a kind of a featurized story on him for Whole Hog Sports today and for the Democrat Gazette. So what did you like about Mekhi the other night, and does it give you even more confidence that he can be maybe the guy that maybe anchors that team in the front court?
Yeah, to me, he just kind of did it all. And, he hit, he hadn't taken a three all year, which is good. That's not his game. He scores around the basket, I think he's a pretty good post-up player. I think he's got a decent jumper, 10 feet or something in. But he seems like he's pretty good at getting the ball and playing with his back to the basket if needed, maneuvering. I guess he's not as good at spinning as Jalen Graham, but I think he can maneuver pretty good in the lane. And he hit his free throws 5 of 7. Big guy's going to get fouled, so that's a big part of being productive offensively. If you're a big guy, is being able to draw fouls and then hit the free throws. It doesn't do you much good if you miss the free throws, although I guess you draw fouls on the other team. And then, get a ton of boards, got 14 boards, all defensive, so, we know Kamani Johnson can attack the offensive glass, and you'd probably like to see Mackay maybe do more of that, but especially with all the misses they had. But he you got to have somebody get those defensive boards. And last time I looked, I think Arkansas was leading the SEC in defensive rebounding percentage, so they're not giving up a lot of second chance points. So that's big. And he blocked 4 shots. When you're doing that, you're altering other shots. He's staying out of foul trouble. He played 32 minutes, which, I'm sure a lot of that had to do with Trevin being hurt. And I don't think he's going to average 32, but he's averaging about 19 minutes. So I bet he starts playing more like 25, 26, assuming he's not in foul trouble. And yeah, he's a high steal rate for a big guy.
Right. Yeah, that's been impressive.
He's averaging, he's getting 1 or 2 steals every game. So he just kind of did it all. And I think he sensed that they needed more from him, maybe. And I thought it was interesting. He talked about, the rim protection, it lets the guys on the perimeter maybe gamble a little bit more. Not that you want to be out of position, but I'm not saying he's, Akeem Olajuwon back there, but maybe he can provide some rim protection. So he can cover up some mistakes that are maybe on the perimeter. If guys take some risks trying to get some steals going the other way, they know they've got somebody back there to help cover for him. So yeah, and he's a guy who didn't do much over in Europe. I think it took him and his brother a little bit of time to adjust to the intensity level of Arkansas's practices. But as Eric Musselman pointed out the other night, they've just kept getting better and better through the summer, September, October. And I think if they give Mikal some minutes, he was productive against Louisville. And of course, Louisville's having a horrible season, but still he had 12 points and 6 rebounds in that game. I think 2 blocks. So I think Mikal is a pretty good player too. He's actually an inch taller, 6'10". I'm not sure how that works with twins, one being an inch taller, but I guess they're still twins. And but yeah, I think Makai's been. I mean, based on what happened in the summer, to me, he's been a pleasant surprise because I kind of wonder, are these guys, and they played it. They started off at Maryland, obviously it's in the Big Ten now, but they played at Rhode Island, that's in the A-10, and that's a good league, but it's not the SEC. And you kind of wonder, are they going to be able to figure out and do what Eric wants? And obviously they have, especially Mackay. And so I really like his all around game on both ends.
Yeah, again on Tuesday he had 13 points, 14 rebounds, 4 blocks, 2 steals. And he had, like Bob mentioned, 14 defensive rebounds. I think that was the most rebounds he's had in a game since he had 18 against Bryant, maybe last season. I think the guy can be really, really, really good, so long as, he's continues to be efficient with his shot attempts. There's been some, I don't want to say concern, but there's been some times where, he probably should have finished some shots at the rim, but missed them. And, if he's knocking down free throws and blocking shots like we saw, I think the guy can be really, really good. I don't know about all SEC caliber, but, it might be a guy that's, fighting for one of those maybe second team spots. I think if he did that, I think Arkansas would be head over heels with that. Arkansas again on Saturday plays Oklahoma at BOK Center in Tulsa. Bob, we get to go back to those sweet seats and the nosebleeds, and hope you pack some Kleenexes to plug up or wipe some blood off your face. Oklahoma 7-2 this season. They've won 7 of the last 8 since they dropped their season opener to Sam Houston State. The lone loss in that 8-game stretch was at Villanova last Saturday. I don't think there's any shame really in losing to Villanova at Villanova, even if that is a team that's kind of struggling. What are y'all expecting to see from Arkansas against Oklahoma? Obviously, it's first game without TB, and it's one of those unique environments, I think, because the arena is going to be kind of split 50-50, or I think that's the way they're trying to sell the tickets and split the fans up 50-50 to make a pretty cool atmosphere. What do y'all think what do you think you're going to see?
Oh, I think it's going to be a great atmosphere. It's a pretty good atmosphere last year. I haven't looked at the box, but I want to say there was about 14 or 15,000 there. I thought Arkansas had a few more fans, but OU had a good contingent. And of course, it's honestly one of Arkansas's worst performances under Eric Musselman. They got beat by 22, I think it was. Eric ended up getting ejected from the game with 2 technicals. He obviously was very upset. We know Arkansas got a lot better, and Oklahoma, kind of leveled off, and they ended up not making the NCAA tournament. They were a solid team, but didn't make the NCAA tournament. Obviously, Arkansas ended up having a lot better season going to the Elite Eight, but that day, that was Oklahoma's day over Arkansas. And even though Arkansas doesn't have many guys back from that game, Devo Davis played. I think he actually led him in scoring. I don't think Kamani played in that game. I may be wrong.
I don't think he did.
Yeah, but I'm sure these young guys, Eric probably showed them some film, or they're aware that, hey, Oklahoma kicked Arkansas's butt last year, and they don't want that to happen again. And their coach got ejected. It just wasn't a very good day for Arkansas on a lot of levels. And so I think Arkansas I think they'd be very motivated anyway, but I think especially after what happened, they'll be very motivated for that game. I think it'll probably be a great atmosphere. And if anything, Arkansas will probably have more fans, because I think people are really, I think they were, Arkansas has always got good basketball fans, but I think they're really excited about this team, and maybe some folks over in Tulsa or over in, that side of the state, haven't gotten to see Arkansas. Maybe they can't get tickets to a game in Budwell because it's sold out, or maybe they don't want to pay exorbitant prices on a website or something. So this might be, their shot to see Arkansas in person. So I think it'll be a great crowd.
Yeah, I think I'm most excited to see how the roles shift as Trevor Brazilew won't be with the team, and then as Nick Smith kind of takes over as the number one scorer, I would assume. And so I'm kind of interested to see where everybody else falls in line.
Couple quick keys for me. I think the way Arkansas defends Grant Sherfield, he's a transfer from Nevada. He is absolutely lighting it up. I think he's shooting 55% from three on like 45 attempts. So he's really been dynamic for Oklahoma to this point. And something that kind of caught me by surprise, I don't know why it did, but at the BOK Center, there's 4 3-point lines on the floor, and that includes the NBA line. And so I think Arkansas has got to be really disciplined with their perimeter jumpers and maybe not fall in love with that really deep three. I think they're shooting, like CBB analytics shows that they're shooting like 10% better from threes, 25 feet or within 25 feet of the rim. And then farther out, it's like, it's in the 20s. So I think that's something to keep a pretty close eye on. So again, Arkansas and Oklahoma at the BOK Center in Tulsa. The game will be on ESPN2 at noon. Really appreciate you guys joining us today and listening in. Hopefully we'll get back into more of a weekly mode, maybe 2 of these during some weeks if different things come up. But wanted to also extend an invitation to anybody listening to shoot us some pics of the trading cards that you got at the UNC Greensboro game on Tuesday. I ended up walking out of the building with 3 packs. Andrew was kind enough to give me his, and I scooped up one that was just kind of sitting there lonely on the media table, grabbed it, and I ended up with a glossy US Reed card. So I've got glossy Eric Musselman, glossy US Reed, and glossy Daniel Gafford, and also Nolan Richardson, Lee Mayberry, Moses Moody. So I think I've got my starting 5 right there out of my deck of cards. Bob, what did you get?
I didn't get any glossy ones, but yeah, I got what I would say is a pretty good group. I got Scotty Thurman, I got Sidney Moncrief, arguably the greatest Razorback of all. I got Dean Tolson, an old school guy in the 70s that had big stats. JD Note, of course, an All-American last year. Pat Bradley, the shooter. Well, watched him on the SEC Network last night. Marvin Delph, along with
a good one.
One of the triplets. Ron Hury, who unfortunately recently passed away, but he was a great Razorback. For Nolan Richardson, Kareem Reed, who I think is the all-time assist leader. Patrick Beverly, who's still playing in the NBA, I guess, with the Lakers now. So I would say I have a pretty good group, although I don't have a pretty nice staff. Eric Musselman and Nolan Richardson.
Yeah, I was looking at another pack that I got. I've got Daryl Macon, Daryl Walker, Corey Beck, Ron Brewer, Moncrief, and Corliss Williamson. So I'm open to trading. Y'all just come hit me up the next time we're at Press Row and we'll get this thing figured out. But I think you can hit us up with any of the cards that you got. I think Bob's Twitter handle is Bob Holt ADG. Andrew's at Andrew_Joseph 23, and I'm at NWA Scotty. So again, appreciate you guys listening, and yeah, come hit us up the next time Arkansas plays in Bud Walton. Maybe we can make a deal happen. But for Bob Holt and Andrew Joseph, I'm Scotty Borderline. Appreciate you guys listening, and we'll see you next week.
The proceeding has been a production of WholeHogSports.com. Look for our latest podcasts on Apple, Spotify, or your favorite podcast store. And visit us anytime at WholeHogSports.com for the latest news and commentary.